next up is Tom Dale. Tom Dale is one of the creators of Ember, the JavaScript framework, so that's pretty exciting. He's here to talk. We're going to have a couple of back-to-back talks about the topic of progressive enhancement. Tom's been doing some writing lately that's been talked about quite a bit about a need to question what we mean by progressive enhancement, and a little bit about whether maybe progressive enhancement is not a realistic option in all cases. So please welcome Tom to talk about progressive enhancement.
Hot mic. It's on. Can you hear me? On. OK. You guys can hear me all right. Thank you guys. Oh, what on earth? Sorry. There we go. It's going to click. Thank you guys so much for having me. Look at all this space they've given the speakers. We can come out, interact with you guys, spread our wings. You know it's in Portland when even the speakers are free range. It's going to be like that for the next 20 minutes, so buckle up, folks. Anyway, thank you guys so much for having me. It's really great to be here and be out of the JavaScript conference space. I know my ideas sometimes in this realm are a little bit unorthodox and, dare I say, even controversial, so I sincerely thank you guys very much for having me here. So I'm probably best known for helping create the JavaScript framework called Ember. It's a JavaScript framework for building 100% client-side web applications. You probably also know me for my snarky tweets on the internet. I wanted to define progressive enhancement here because I think that there are a lot of different terms that people use. It's kind of like one of these really loosey-goosey terms that means whatever people want it to mean. So for the purposes of this discussion, I will define progressive enhancement in terms of the technique and less of the idea. The specific technique of you render your HTML on the server using some sort of usually server-side framework like Rails or Django or PHP, something like this. And then you add additional behavior beyond just the raw content using JavaScript on the client side. So that's the definition that I'm using for the purposes of this talk. Now, I know there are other definitions of progressive enhancement that people use, but they tend to boil down to make things work in as many places as you can, which, while a very beautiful sentiment, is not particularly actionable. So this is a screenshot I took of a conversation I was having on Twitter the other day. I think things have they've got heated, frankly. There's basically people have decamped into two different competing sides. There's like the JavaScript frameworks and library side, and then there's the progressive enhancement side. And so I, again, appreciate you guys having me here to represent the JavaScript camp. But actually, I'm here on a mission of peace, and I have something to ask of all of you here today. And that is, will you help me end JavaScript shaming? Let's put an end to this JavaScript shaming. What do I mean by JavaScript shaming? So Daniel Mall has a Tumblr that he put together, which is pretty funny, called Side JavaScript, where he just disables JavaScript in his browser and takes screenshots and puts on the Tumblr. That's great. Also, Tontek wrote this blog post called JSDR, which JSDR means JavaScript didn't read. Let me tell you what he says here. He says, pages that are empty without JavaScript. Dead to history, my God, unreliable for search results, and thus ignorable. No need to waste time reading or responding. Because in 10 years, nothing you built today that depends on JavaScript for the content will be available, visible, or archived anywhere on the web. All of your fancy front-end JS-required frameworks are dead to history. Dear God, a mere evolutionary blip in web app development practices. Perhaps they provided interesting, ephemeral prototypes, but nothing more. OK. Well, I find that a little bit condescending, but more importantly, I think it's wrong. I think that's just flat out wrong. For example, here's a screenshot of archive.org's archive of classic PC games for DOS and Windows. And I think you can agree with me that if it's possible to archive ancient proprietary games shipped on frickin' floppy disks running on a proprietary closed-source operating system, surely some genius out there can figure out a way to archive apps written in a standardized, ubiquitous programming language that's been around for 2 decades and delivered over the web. But who knows? A question for the ages. But I think there's something more important here, which is that a lot of people take the web for granted as something that just perennially exists. It has been birthed into the world, and it will continue to serve and do good for the remainder of mankind, or for the duration of mankind. But I think the only reason the web still exists in the form it does today is because there are people who fight for it. And most importantly, they fight to improve it and to adapt it as the context shifts around it. So recently, Facebook introduced a new feature that they call instant articles, and I just wanted to play a short clip of that video for you here.
Today, almost 1 billion people will visit Facebook to check out what's happening in the world around them. Most of them will come across articles in their newsfeed, shared by their friends and their favorite publishers.
And one of the huge issues we see is how long it can take for those articles and news to load, which we know on phones is a really big deal.
That's why we built Instant Articles, a new way for publishers to create fast, interactive articles on Facebook. So when you tap on the article, it loads instantly.
This is a living page. This is a living, breathing article that is beyond just words.
The video autoplays and allows you to tell the story in a more visual and more animated way.
Okay, so that to me is the threat to the web, not websites that happen to not work when you disable JavaScript. To me, these things, Facebook's instant articles, Apple just released Apple News as part of iOS 9, those, to me, are the existential threat to the web. These are walled gardens controlled by big corporations like Apple and Facebook. And I think history has shown us if the experience there is fundamentally better than the web, that's where the publishers are going to go, and that's where the users are going to go. So it's important for us as web developers, people who care about the web, not just from a very everyday pedestrian view, but see the web as an ideal thing, an idealistic thing. It's important for us to fight for a web that remains competitive as the industry shifts. So now I want to play a clip from Eric Meyer's FluentConf keynote. To be fair, I'm going to pick on Eric a little bit in this talk, but it's OK because he picked on me a little bit in his talk. So this is what Eric had to say.
The web prizes ubiquity over consistency. In fact, ubiquity pretty much equals inconsistency. There's no way around that. Now, I know that frameworks are really, they make it really convenient to develop. They make it really easy to create stuff quickly. Your convenience is not an excuse. Your convenience is not an excuse to do the web wrong.
OK, your convenience is not an excuse to do the web wrong. Again, I think it's a little bit condescending. But more importantly, I think it's just wrong. Believe me, I know better than anyone that people don't perceive JavaScript to be the most convenient thing in the world. Learning a JavaScript framework has a learning curve. And in fact, inertia and experience tends to keep developers on the stack that they know, right? Why would you throw away all of that efficiency that you've gained? So if people are using new tools, it's because they're there to solve real problems. Writing an app with a lot of JavaScript actually has a lot of real benefits. Developers aren't lazy. They're not like toddlers who are distracted by the new shiny tools. Developers are talented humans who are trying to do the best job that they can in a limited amount of time. So I think that if your attitude is that people are picking up JavaScript frameworks and libraries and tools just because it's just their convenience or they like the new shiny tool, I think that can lead you down an area that is going to cause you to miss very important conceptual shifts. So the specific contextual shift that I'm talking about is the fact that the smartphone is completely taking over the world. This is a blog post by Benedict Evans, who's a partner at Andreessen Horowitz, the VC firm. And he wrote this really phenomenal blog post. He has a series of blog posts talking about this trend. This blog post in particular is called "The Smartphone is the New Sun." And what he says is that over the next few years, almost all of the people who don't yet have a phone will get one, and almost all of the phones on Earth will become smartphones. A decade ago, some of that was subject to debate. Today, it isn't. What all those people pay for data and how they charge their phones, that may be a challenge, but the smartphone itself is close to a universal product for humanity, the first the tech industry has ever had. And in fact, Sophie talked about this a little bit in her talk about, for example, refugees using their smartphone as a lifeline. And guess what? Every smartphone has a browser that runs JavaScript. And I think, actually, if you think about when people use an application or they use software today, in my mind, that is really the tale of two supercomputers talking to each other. So for example, the new iPhone 6s, which came home today, mine's waiting for me at my apartment at home. The new iPhone 6s is faster than the new MacBook in certain benchmarks. Isn't that really amazing? I think that's really amazing. Performance has caught up, but connectivity has not. In fact, even in developed countries, connectivity remains a major challenge. Because if I'm out and about, latency is going to fluctuate wildly. And in some cases, it may even drop out unexpectedly. So what we're seeing, at some point soon, almost every human on the earth is going to own a smartphone. And smartphones are going to be more pervasive than connectivity, which maybe feels counterintuitive, but even now, even in the United States, I still have issues with connectivity, even though I've got a phone that is now faster than my laptop in my pocket. So when you have a supercomputer in your pocket, but it has intermittent connectivity, the ability to work offline becomes the key to ubiquity. Let's hear from Eric again.
And then there's this from Tom Dale.
See?
No, sorry, wrong. But yes, you do get to take it away and expect the web to work. There are exactly 3 things I can think of that you can't take away from the web. HTTP, HTML, and a piece of software that will look at those, that will consume those 2 and give you something, a web browser or a user agent.
OK, so according to Eric, what is the web? The web is HTML, it's HTTP, and it's a browser of some kind, what we call a user agent. But if connectivity is the thing that is most unreliable, I'm detecting a problem here. Do you see it? Oh my God! HTTP, right? We're getting supercomputers with very capable modern browsers that update themselves. This idea that people have incapable devices is becoming less and less true over time. And so if progressive enhancement is about ubiquity, then what you'll find is that with progressive enhancement, again, the technique of augmenting raw HTML from the server with JavaScript is great for the world where you have a slow device, an incapable device, a device where you cannot reason about its capabilities or its performance, but you can depend on the network being more or less, if not amazing, at least there pretty often. However, in a world where you have fast, reliable devices that have a lot of features, but the networks tend to be bad, then actually moving as much of that code to the client where it can operate autonomously is key. I want to show you Chrome has, the Google team at Chrome has written, Chrome team at Google, has written a lot of documentation on how to build your applications in this way, this offline first way. And what they say is, because internet connections can be flaky or non-existent, you need to consider offline first. Write your app as if it has no internet connection. Once your app works offline, add whatever network functionality you need for your app to do more when it's online. And they say, read on for some tips. And these are the tips that they give you. Use local data whenever possible. Cache that data to the device. Separate your app's UI from its data. Use a JavaScript MVC framework, for example. And assume your app can be closed at any time. So in other words, if progressive enhancement is about preserving the ubiquity of the web, making it accessible for everyone, and if the age of the slow, incapable device is coming to an end, but connectivity remains imperfect, even in developed countries, what that means, the inevitable conclusion is, we should all be building offline apps with JavaScript!
Hallelujah! Holy shit! Where's the Tylenol?
Oh my God! So if you really believe this thing about progressive enhancement being about ubiquity, and we look at the trends, the thing that we should be doing is building offline apps. All right, now, before I take my victory lap and strut off screen, let me say this. I have to admit that there actually are a lot of benefits to rendering on the server as well. If I'm going to be intellectually honest, I have to give that to people who advocate for progressive enhancement as a technique. And they've done a very good job of outlining the benefits of this progressive enhancement approach. Works if JavaScript fails to load, you get the HTML, but there's another network hiccup, you don't get all the assets. It's much easier to archive and index these pages if you don't need a JavaScript runtime. And of course, you get faster initial load times because by definition, there's less for you to download. You're not downloading this big JavaScript payload. So let's assume that I am an advocate of progressive enhancement and I want everyone in the world to do it. There's a small problem. which is, I, as an advocate, spend a lot of time going around to conferences, giving talks, writing blog posts, yelling at people on Twitter. But there's a lot of noise. I went through and I tried to think about all the talks that I've seen at various conferences about all the things that you should be doing as a developer. That's a lot of firsts, and I don't know where y'all went to school, but where I went to school, there's only one first. So developers have so many things that they're told that they should be doing. But at some point, they just give up, and they focus on shipping. So I want to talk to you quickly about something called ego depletion. And ego depletion, if you've never heard of it, is a pretty simple concept. What it means is that your brain's ability to make decisions is actually a finite resource. And once you've used up that resource, it's gone until you rest and you recharge. So it doesn't matter how difficult the decision is, even just going to the grocery store and choosing like which brand of toothpaste you want to buy, that actually depletes the resource as much as deciding like, a more important thing like should I make my app work with JavaScript disabled. And as you might guess, psychologists and cognitive behavioral study people have done a lot of research into this. And it turns out that the best way to make someone do something that you want them to do is to make it free. And when I say free, I don't necessarily mean in terms of cost, although that certainly helps. I mean free in terms of having to make a decision, because odds are, by the end of the day, their ego is going to be depleted, and they will not have the cognitive ability to make these decisions, the right decision. So if you're at work late at 6 p.m., and you have to decide between going home to hang out with your kid or making that feature work with JavaScript disabled, which one are you going to do? It's like an easy choice for me. Not that I have a kid, but if I did, hypothetically, I would rather spend time with them. So I want to share with you this very interesting academic paper that I came across with a very auspicious title, Do Defaults Save Lives? Why? OK, let's take a look at this. This study was actually about organ donation. You know how when you go to get your driver's license, it's like, do you want to donate your organs if you were to get in like a catastrophic accident and you're dead, but hey, your organs are still going to be useful for someone who needs them, like a new liver. And the results of this study are striking, extremely striking. This is a diagram of the percentage of the population that has agreed to donate their organs in the event of their death. And what you'll find here is that there is a series of countries where it's close to 100%. It's really striking. And there's a whole other set of countries where it's significantly lower, like 27% is the highest there. And you might think, well, these are different countries, and they might have different social norms around whether it's OK to give your organs away after you pass. But what you'll find is that there's countries here, like Sweden and Denmark, that culturally are actually pretty similar, and yet they could not be farther apart. So what explains this difference? The difference is that the countries in gold make you opt in to donating your organs, and the countries in blue force you to opt out. Now, it seems to me that the decision of what should happen to your organs when you die, my God, what a morbid decision to think about, right? That's like serious business. It gets to the root of human existence and the afterlife and the sanctity of your body and all of these things. And yet it turns out that just whether it's opt-in or opt-out makes this big of a difference. So if you want people to adopt your technique or to adopt your strategy, my God, if people can't even take the time to think about what happens with their organs, how are they going to take the time to make their feature work with JavaScript disabled? So the next thing I want to talk to you real quickly, is something called Fastboot. Fastboot is this add-on that we've been working on for Ember.js. It's still very early alpha, but I think it embraces this idea that if you want people to do something, make it so that there's almost no cost to them to do the right thing. And the way that I think about Fastboot is it's like progressive enhancement for your Ember.js app. Most importantly, it's not something that you do. It's just an add-on that you install. Here's Eric again.
If you go to bustle.com, hey, we require JavaScript to show you all these articles that we've published. Really? OK, so Bustle is an Ember app, and more importantly, and unfortunately for Eric, my fiance works there, so I took it a little more personally than I would have otherwise. And so we wondered, would it be possible to bring progressive enhancement to Bustle without making them totally rewrite their application or abandon it and abandon the idea of even using a JavaScript framework at all? So that's what Fastboot is. And I'm running short on time here, so I've recorded a video that just real quickly is going to show you what the experience of using Fastboot is like.
So the first thing you do, this is me. I asked them for the source code. They generously gave it to me. So the first thing you do is you install this Ember CLI fastboot add-on. This will install over NPM. I swear there's only like 5 seconds of code here for any designers in the audience. So that's going to install the npm module, and then you can start up the server by typing ember fastboot, and I'll say serve assets, so it serves like the CSS and the fonts and so on. We're going to build it, and now check this out. I'm going to open up Chrome. Oh, what am I doing? Disabling JavaScript. Let's open up the server. What happens? Total failure, right? What's going to happen? I'm on edge. Oh my God, look at that. Oh, I can click on links. We can check out what the Kardashians are up to. Courtney, looking good, or outdoorsy style. Oh my God, it's curlable. All right. Whoa, holy crap. Look at that. Curlable JavaScript apps. Oh, geez Louise. All right. So progressive enhancement and JavaScript frameworks and libraries have typically been framed as two ends of a spectrum. You're either on this spectrum, on this end, or this end, and you choose your side. And my hope is that technologies like Fastboot, this is for Ember, but other libraries and frameworks are exploring similar ideas. I'm hoping that this will bend that curve, make it no longer a spectrum anymore. We can get the benefits of both. So just to wrap up here, the web is about ubiquity. I totally agree with that. However, sometimes we need to rethink our assumptions. Specifically, smartphones eating the world. Adoption is through the roof. We've never seen a technology to be as adopted as widely and as rapidly as the smartphone. But despite that, despite the fact that everyone's getting supercomputers with capable browsers in their pocket, connectivity is the weak link, even in developing countries. And JavaScript frameworks are taking off for good reasons. And if you just are dismissive of JavaScript because you think it's the new fashion, then you're doing yourself a disservice. So let's take advantage of these trends while preserving the ubiquity of the web, not try to shame people back to an outdated model. Thank you very much.